Guys ready? I call the order for the City of Petoskey City Council meeting for March 17th, 2025. Please rise with me for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Clerk Beck, would you please call roll?
Demore.
Present.
Shields.
Here.
Nachtrab is absent. Walker. Here. Murphy.
Present, we have a quorum. Next presentation. We're going to hear a presentation by Doug Urquhart of Hubble, Roth and Clark, the city's consultant of Petoskey Area Expanded Water and Wastewater Regional Capacity Evaluation. Would you like to come down with Mr. Fate and you guys? You all know who Mr. Fate is? He's our Public Works Director. Welcome, both of you.
So yeah, thanks for letting us take this opportunity to fill you in on the recent completed regional water wastewater evaluation, capacity evaluation report here. So
Get rid of that.
Should be good.
where do I have to put it?
You should just click it. Is that one? I think it's too far away. Try to
Maybe pointing back
try not
to the back.
just test it. Okay, now try it. There you go. There.
Yep.
Now they're touching on the stomach. Thank you, sir. Oh, well, you're off.
So a little bit of history and purpose on why we're here today and talking about this. So as our region grows, Petoskey as a water utility and a sewer utility, we serve the townships around us. And as they grow, we're as a utility growing with them. And so I would say about 4 years ago, we started receiving a large amount of calls with developments all around us or vacant lands all around us, developers calling, wanting to know if we could serve properties. That's not a simple question to answer. We can't just say, yes, we can serve. No, we can't. There's a lot of factors that go involved, and that's why we have Doug here with HRC. We look at a lot of factors: fire flow, water quality, pressures. And so there's a lot of factors that go into identifying whether we can serve properties for water and wastewater. So with the volume of calls, and they weren't just localized in one area, they were all around us, the east side of Petoskey, the south side, out in Resort Township along the 31 corridor. So we started talking with the townships and said, we need to come together as a region, as local government bodies and collaborate on this evaluation report or an evaluation of the systems, eventually culminating in this report to identify, as we grow, what is it going to take for the city to keep expanding. At some point, we're going to hit a capacity where we can't go any further. And then once we hit that, what's it going to look like? Are we going to need new wells? Are we going to need storage? What kind of transmission mains need to be built, and where do they need to be built? So that leads to the second point here: system shortcomings need to be identified prior to the demand surpassing, our capacities. So we're at that point now. We're sitting fine, and we'll get to some of the details in the report. So we worked with Bear Creek Township, Resort Township, and we applied for a grant. to Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development. We were awarded the grant, so townships pitched in along with the grant to cover the cost of this report. So existing water and wastewater service areas. So in 2023, we had 3,953 water service connections as a system. Now that includes city and townships. And you see the split there. From 2014 to 2024, the city saw 3.7% growth. And the township saw a 10.5% growth. So you see where the growth's at, which makes sense. The city's locked in. We have corporate boundaries. As things grow, it's going to happen in the townships. Wastewater, we had 3,011 sewer service connections in both townships, and that's just city. Both townships send sewer to us. We have agreements in place for that. And so really, when we talk our system, it's city system. And then once you get outside the city, like in Bear Creek Township, they work with Harbor Sewer Authority, and they have their own system. So we don't maintain that at all.
Which township?
Bear Creek Township. So between 2014 and 2023, the city saw a 2.1% growth. So that's properties getting completely turned over from maybe a single family to multifamily, properties getting developed into multi, like apartments. So that's why we see the growth here in the city. Existing water and wastewater service areas. So here's, the numbers in a table format. Again, you can see the growths at the bottom there, year over year in our annual growth rate. Here's a water system map. So our service area is pretty large. It's a presentation in itself to explain the history, because it's quite interesting how back in the day it was mainly the yellow, and then it expanded to the south of Petoskey there, and then Bay Harbor came along and started their development, and then wanted the city to take over. So there was agreements worked out, and 425 agreement was in place for that, and that's where Bay Harbor sits. So with that, we have 7 wells, 3 well pairs, and 1 single well. So down at the water's edge down here, just at the end of Bayfront, we call our lime kiln well house, and the video screen is kind of covering that up there. Out in Bay Harbor, we have wells 4 and 10. That's our preserved wells. And then as you work across the screen there to the right, you have our West Shore storage. So that mainly services storage for the Bay Harbor area. Then you get to the lower right there, we have multiple triangles. Those are wells, the Anderson wells. So those were drilled when the Rose and the Bear Creek apartment complexes were developed. At the same time, the Myers property started their development. And when they came into town, they wanted to know what it would take to serve that property. And we needed wells at the time. So they were the first to jump and build wells that the city eventually acquired, took over. So the Anderson Road never did get developed. There's like 2 straws in the ground, essentially. They need to be pump tested, and then a well house built on top of those. So that's that part of it. Then you've got as you move to the square up there, that's our water tower. And then to the far right, mid screen there, you've got Northman over by the high school there, Northman well site. And then our Lockwood storage tank up on the top of the hill on Jennings, Kalamazoo area. This is just a water schematic, similar to the map, only it just puts it in the schematic form. So you see all of our wells, storage capacities there, and then the different districts. So the West Shore district is the Bay Harbor. Central District is mainly the downtown area here. And then the upper district is everything up on top of the hills. And then you can see our wells. So over on the far right, lower right corner there, Anderson Wells Future. And the city does own that land and the wells.
All right.
Doug, you want to jump in here?
Excellent. So the first thing I guess that when we looked at it with regards to this study was what are the impacts on potential growth, and the way we measure potential growth on and its impact to the water system is new demand. So water use for the water system, that's typically an average and assumed amount per connection. We evaluate the type of connection that would occur with that growth, and then we apply a factor for the maximum daily demand that new demand would require. So looking back over the past 6 years, the average daily demand is about 1.6 million gallons a day, and then with a maximum year in 2018, almost 2 million gallons a day. And then in that same year, the maximum daily demand was about 4 million gallons a day. And one of the things that you'll notice in terms of maximum daily demand is that it is very affected by the seasons. So if it's a drier year, there's a lot more irrigation, a lot more water use. And then some years it's wetter, that the water use, the demands aren't quite as high. And the way the state EGLE, the state requires us to evaluate water systems or to look back over a 6-year, 7-year planning period and review what the actual maximum demands are for that period. And typically when you're at 80% of capacity, that's when EGLE recommends at least planning for improvements to manage the water supply capacity or enacting control measures. One of the things I guess we need to point out here is that we use 2 terms in the report. One is operating capacity and the other one's firm capacity. So firm capacity is it's like a baseball team. You have 10 players, or a basketball team, so you have 10 players, and you take one out, your biggest person, and you have 9, that's your firm. But in reality, you can only play 5. So for the system, the city system, think of the amount of wells that the city can actually operate, pump, treat, that the actual, these wells are not just wells, they're part of an aquifer, and that aquifer can only produce so much. And so that's where the existing operating capacity is approximately 5 million gallons a day. And so with that in mind, we looked at the laser doesn't work here. I don't think does it. Okay, I'll just kind of point and you can look at it like it makes sense. But we looked at the city. This is the city's map here, and so you can see Bay Harbor. That's purple. That's the West Shore district. That's on a 1 pressure district fed by the 2 preserve wells. We got the center, the parts of the city in blue. That's the central district. Those are the mains that are typically part of the older parts of the city, and those are fed by the Lockwood tank. That's a earth and ground storage tank, and then in green is the upper district where the tower is, and those are fed by Northman, Intertown, and there's also Ingalls pump station, which both feeds up to that district and then does have valves that can control between the 2 other districts. And so as part of this study, we met with the various stakeholders at the city, Resort Township, Bear Creek Township, and kind of evaluated where a lot of the new demands may occur. And these are both, as Jason mentioned, within the city limits, and also and within the townships that would
potentially require service off the city's water system. And so as you can see here, the areas to the south along 131 are included as part of both from a 5-year growth perspective and then a 20-year, and then the other main areas in Bear Creek along at the east of town there near the east of the high school. And then there were some future demands within resort, but most of those are along to the south of 31. And so this table basically shows how these new demands would be impacted in terms of both average daily demand and maximum daily demand. And from our perspective, if you look at the average maximum day as a percentage of operating capacity, we're about approximately 72%. And then with the new demands at about 5 years, we would be exceeding the 80% criteria. And then over 20 years, it's even much more. So, and I'll get that more into later what the recommended infrastructure is. And there, I know we use the term operating capacity and firm capacity, but from our perspective, we recommend using the average maximum daily demand as the baseline, just because there's other measures, and using the 4 that was seen 6 years ago is a little bit, maybe a little bit too conservative. So the recommended water system capacity improvements. So the short-term 5-year recommendations were to develop the existing city-owned Anderson well site, and then the associated transmission mains and water mains to incorporate those into the system. A lot of those are based on where the need would be occurring. And then long term, this would likely require additional storage, likely in the upper district. Long term capacity, I'm talking more in the 20-year planning period, and then also the new transmission and distribution mains associated with that. So that's for the water system. The water system, as I mentioned, it includes both distribution and treatment. The city uses wells with disinfection. There's all the treatment occurs basically at the well house. From a wastewater treatment perspective, all the city's flows flow to the wastewater treatment plant. But based on the 20-year growth, there is sufficient capacity, but it's something we recommend monitoring over the next 20 years as new flows are added, just to make sure they're not exceeding 80% of the. When we look at it, it's not just flows, but it's actually like what's in the wastewater. So from solids and organics to like number of people that are actually contributing to that source. So the wastewater treatment plant the way it's constructed right now does have sufficient capacity. But as I mentioned before, we do recommend continued maintenance of existing operations just to make sure that it is maintaining its existing process, equipment and conditions. And then from a collection system standpoint, this area shows basically all the water flows, most of the water flows by gravity, and the city's side, you think of Petoskey as kind of like a flowing towards all the most of the wastewater to the west in the city side flows to the west of Bear River, flows by gravity to the plant, and then on the east side of Bear River, most of it flows to the city main pump station, which is then fed into the wastewater treatment plant. Bay Harbor is a little bit different. There's multiple lift stations in there that all flow to one lift station, and then those are pumped via force main where they discharge by gravity in the city just to the west of town. And then with this part of the study, we worked with the city reviewing new flows, new sanitary flows both within the city and then within the townships. And so these are the similar areas, except the main difference is that area to the just to the east of the high school there, all that flows to the areas maintained by the sanitation, Bay Harbor Sanitation District.
Harbor Springs.
Sorry, Harbor Springs.
So many harbors.
Harbor View. And so from a recommendation standpoint, the existing collection system does have capacity for the cities, for growth from the city's perspective, the city's contribution to those flows. However, there are some improvements once we do add new flows from Resort Township. There's an area just at Epler and Sheridan, and then also from Bear Creek Township. So depending on where that growth occurs, the long-term growth would require some improvements to the collection system, but those are mainly capacity related and replacement of sewer mains.
Who pays for that?
Well, Jason can jump in.
Yeah, our current agreements state that with the township state that it's the township's responsibility, whether they pass that on to developers, which historically they have, pass that on to developers, but it is not, if our sewer mains need to be upsized because of township growth, it's their responsibility.
Okay. It's good to know.
Actually, you can jump in here now.
So, yeah, so going forward, with all that said, this report is a broad picture, right? And how we've approached growth, and when anybody asks us, can we serve? We evaluate on a case-by-case basis. A single home is different than an apartment complex, is different than a commercial building, is different than an industrial complex. So everything's evaluated on a case-by-case basis. So water, and then we mentioned sewer agreements. So we have existing sewer agreements. The cost was talked about, improvements. And so historically, you look at the bigger developments south of Petoskey and Bear Creek Township. There was some large scale developers that came to town that wanted to build apartments. They wanted to build commercial. They foot the bill for many of the, all of the transmission and distribution water mains. They did their own sewer improvements, whatever that was required by the township's engineers when they looked at it. And we talked about the wells. The Myers built the Intertown wells. The Lowe's and the apartment developers there, they drilled those wells at Anderson. When Bay Harbor went in, the preserve, and it used to be the Camp Daggett well, those were built by the Bay Harbor development. The Daggett well closed because of the leachate issue, and then that's why the Northman wells were built. So, like I said, John, historically the costs have been passed on to the developers through the townships. So that pretty much wraps up our presentation here.
I think we have questions.
We got questions, so yeah.
I know everybody on this list, I think, has questions. Let's start with Mr. Shields.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Jason and Doug. Just to continue on the cost questions, I have other questions, but I think this is a good jumping in point. You mentioned, Mr. Fate, about the improvements, you said improvements were historically passed on to developers. What about, does that include future upgrades, maintenance issues, and also just the regular staffing that the Public Works Department into all the maintenance and the going ons and happenings of the Public Works to service those areas going outside the city? How is that funded?
Through the sewer rates. So once the capital projects are completed by others, then those systems are turned over to us. We acquire them, and then through the sewer rates, or sewer and water rates, that pays for staff to maintain and the long-term maintenance of those facilities.
Repairs, if maintenance.
Maintenance and repairs,
So
yeah.
like if something goes wrong up at the casino well or something like that.
So the casino, any of the tribal properties, they're separate from our cities, so they're water.
So the Walmart, all that area.
Yeah, so anything in the Walmart
If it
area.
goes wrong, where we take care of it.
Yep,
Do they pay more per water gallon than we do?
they do. I don't have the rates in front of me, but yes, our outside the city rates are higher than inside city rates, yes.
And follow up with that, with the projects identified in capital improvement plans and those forecasted needs, those would be covered under those sewer rates? Or are those expenditures that have come, I mean, a lot of those are, they're forecasted, we don't have a budget for those yet, but those ideally, or that the plan would, those would come under the sewer funds or the water fund.
Yes, and most of this infrastructure we're talking about in the townships is relatively new. They're not 60-year-old mains like we have in the city. So to date, we really haven't come across any major capital improvements projects needed in the townships. But at some point, there's potential, yeah, that there would be. I mean, we've invested maintenance in some pretty extensive maintenance into our wells that do sit out in the townships, but the wells feed the system, right? So that they're providing water to both city and township residents.
Is there a capital improvement plan to address all of the stuff that's outside the city limits?
No, not in our city capital improvements plan. As far as building infrastructure to provide, to maintain.
Yeah, if you need to replace a well, mains, junctions coming through some of those larger projects.
Yeah, I mean, we're in our rate study right now. So, with our rate study,
Incorporated in it.
We're telling the rate makers, we're going to need X amount of dollars in the future to keep maintaining the system. Okay. And so those numbers we should be, I think Eagle recommends every 5 years, I was told, to do a rate study. And that way we keep up on that. And so we're always looking at what do we need to do for capital improvements? How is our rates covering those as we move forward in the future?
And with this system, we will never be surprised where you'll come to city council and say, we need $1.4 million.
Don't say never, right? I mean,
we would never say never, yeah, because things.
But we did, but this happened with the fire truck where we end up having to come up and ask the people and go back and say, we need the voters to vote on 1.4 million. We don't anticipate, we have money to back something like that up in our electric and water funds.
Without talking specific dollars, I mean, yes, we have cushion built in, but I would say ever since I worked for the city in the consulting side and then here as an employee to the city is very proactive in looking out for future maintenance. We're always, I would say we're a step ahead of failures. We're always a step ahead of what's going to come down the line that we're going to need to invest money in. And we're planning for that.
Mr. Shields, do you have anything else?
Thank you, Mayor. So with the map and the future growth areas that are identified, you mentioned working with the different township and city. Do you know how those were picked? And were those planned for single family or planned for multi-family units?
I can't speak for anything in the township. It was a collaborative effort and the townships provided us with the areas. Like I'll go to the water because that's all those dashed lines outside of the city. Those were provided to us from the townships, and they were identified as areas of growth or potential developments in areas of growth that they've seen of recent and what they're projecting in the 20-year outlook.
Okay. Well, I can follow up with them some other time, and I will also may follow up with you sometime on the interesting story about how the service area boundary got mapped. I'll ask that.
Yeah, Doug did a presentation and we could share that with council. It's pretty interesting, the history of the water system.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mr. Moore.
So I'm looking at what's page 5 of my report. And on there, it says that it's important to note that although the maximum MDD has exceeded the 80% threshold, administrative controls can be implemented in the interim period while new supplies are being planned. So I'm just curious, what are the administrative controls that you're referencing there?
So oftentimes when you're approaching a certain capacity, there's different factors to kind of not just control water use, but just control the timing of when that demand is occurring. So like odds and even days for irrigation, there's sending out mailers when it's really dry, and there's a lot of use. Those are the sort of basically administrative controls to limit those peak days, I would say.
Yeah, and as Doug mentioned earlier on in the presentation, our peaks depend on weather, right? So we've historically seen that summertime, late July, August, we see some huge peaks in our pumpage from the wells. And oddly enough, you'd think it's during the day, but it's not. It's in the middle of the night where our wells are running like crazy. It's because of all the irrigation that between Bay Harbor and the city here and businesses and residents. So that's what Doug said. I think for us, that would be a great administrative thing to consider if we do run into an issue, is to implement some kind of a odd even or alternating irrigation plan.
You kind of segued right into my next question. And that was, earlier in the presentation, you said that a maximum daily demand, that figure is impacted by seasons, dry weather, that sort of thing. So doesn't that then in turn impact the predictability of demand going forward? How accurate can we be? I heard you say you look more at average daily demand, but I'm curious how that all shakes out.
That's a really good question. I would say it depends on what baseline you're using. There's a lot of unpredictability in that. The peaking factor we used, 2.5, is assuming the worst case. That's the worst part of the season. So in all likelihood, it'd be less than that, but we recommend at least you got to be prepared for those cases of that much demand. Design for that and plan for that.
And then I just had one other question. In the first paragraph, right under water system capacity on page 4, it says the total firm, and by the way, thanks for telling the difference between firm and operating capacity, because I didn't know what that meant. But it says the total firm operating capacity with the largest well out of service is 8.0 million gallons per day. Do we have a largest well out of service, or is that just assuming a scenario?
That's assuming the largest, either well or let's say you have 5 pumps. Eagle requires you to assume the largest of those is not in operation. So just on paper, I think the city could probably, all the pumps running could probably push maybe 9-10 MGD, but it would dry up the aqua.
Yeah, that would be, if we were to push our system to that, it would be for an extreme event such as a fire. And we've pushed our system during fire events in the past, but it can't sustain that for a long period of time.
What is it that can't sustain it? The aqua filter?
Yeah, you push your pumps. Most of our wells are rated at 1,000 gallons a minute. If you were to run that for an extended period of time, they call it a drawdown. So your aquifer, if you start at a static level of an elevation of water, at this point, you kick your well pump on, the water's going to have what they call a cone of depression, and it's going to start to sink around the well as it sucks out of the ground. if you keep running that at a high rate, it's gonna keep drawing down, and then at some point you could run into, pump issues where you just don't have water, or your capacity of your pumping is down.
There's currently no pump out of service. That's just a
Is there,
way to add it.
are we required by law to provide water to anybody other than the city of Petoskey?
Under the agreement.
Under the agreement, any existing customer, sure, but no,
When is
not.
that, how long does that agreement go for? Do you know?
Yeah, I
Is it
don't,
a yearly
I don't,
thing?
I didn't pull those agreements
Is it
before.
yearly or is that a long term?
Yeah.
Okay.
15 to 20-year agreements
And
is
it's still a
typically what
big
we've.
thing.
Mhm.
So we're basically locked in to provide them sewer and water.
To existing
to
customers,
resort- To resort.
to existing customers.
Okay,
As growth continues, I mean, we could say at some point, no, we're done growing. We're not gonna expand our system anymore.
and who will let us know if that comes to it? You?
We could say that as the city,
Yeah.
or in the past, before everything south of Walmart got developed, there was a time frame where Eagle stepped in and said, you can't expand unless these parameters are met.
Okay,
And this is where our report's going, right? So as we grow, the report's indicating that we need a new well here in the next 5 years.
but most of the growth is in the township, not in the city is the thing.
Correct. So we're looking out before Eagle tells us, here's the line in the sand, you can't go any further. So we're looking out and being proactive.
And those are making it by going up, providing all those places, I take it they're picking up per unit, but better piece of the cost of maintenance than a city resident because we're charging more.
Yeah, you could say that, yeah.
Okay. Mr. Moore,
So following up on administrative controls, do we have a plan in place to engage administrative controls as needed?
no.
No, not at this time.
Do you see that this possible summer or the summer after or sometime in the next 5 years?
Mm,
What I'm asking for is this, if there is a situation, I would like to have our city manager meet with our legal firm and you and come up with a game plan so that if it does come to that, we have the legality correct to initiate that as a city.
yeah, we can put
Sure.
it, we can start on administrative controls, right now and just have them queued up, ready for whenever council gives us that.
Council, are you okay with me asking him to do that?
More than okay.
Okay, it doesn't have to be done today, Shane.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
We're gonna glide through this summer.
that's a great idea. I'm not opposed to that. I would just hate for us to get to the point where that's the end game for us. We don't want to be doing that. So, I'd like to be looking out ahead at looking at.
Also, think it's easier to address it now when there's calmness in the room and in the community.
Yeah.
Just have those in place now rather than at the last minute come to city council and we have 2 meetings or 3 to initiate something, so.
Mhm.
Okay. Mr. Shield.
Thanks, Matt. I just want to make a statement for the record that those are, that's an example of a cost that is not fully it's on the burden of city taxpayers and that particular cost. The administrative staff to manage the system is not fully shared with township residents. So as we think about how the city and how the township grows together, I just want to point out some of the costs as I think about what is city taxpayers take on that township residents don't. I just want to make that whole comment. And then one last question. Before Ms. Walker gets to take on airtime. You mentioned the aquifer level. I know some cities downstate, they're dealing with wells running dry just through the down draw. I've heard of over 200 feet, maybe even 300 feet of the aquifer for the regular level drawing down. Have we done studies up here about the changing level of our aquifer?
So our wells are tied to monitors down at the treatment plant, and our guys are watching that on a daily basis almost. They haven't noticed any long-term effects of our aquifers getting drawn down to the point where it's going to be detrimental to the wells themselves or the fear of running dry. We are in a confined aquifer, right, Doug? So confined aquifers are a little different than an unconfined aquifer, and many of your homes outside of the city that do have wells are in an unconfined aquifer. They're shallower wells. Those are a little more, correct me if I'm wrong, Doug, but those are a little more advantageous, or, having the possibility of running dry because of larger wells in the vicinity sucking more water than they're taking more of their share, right?
Yes, thank you.
I'll also point out, Mr. Shields, you mentioned burden to the taxpayers. The balance is they're about what, 12% of our water?
I pulled consumption for the last 3 years. So city, from our water system, the city is comprised of 75%. Bear Creek Township's roughly between 20-21%, and Resort comprises about 4 to 5.
Any other questions? Ms. Walker?
Thank you, Mayor. So I first question I had was, does anybody remember when the millage for the wastewater treatment plant upgrade was in place? And are we still, is that millage already expended, like, is it expended and paid for? Because I know that the expansion of the wastewater treatment plant kind of justified the last rounds of fee increases for wastewater treatment.
You talking about the bond measure?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was a bond, it wasn't a millage.
Yeah. I
Okay,
still think we're paying on that. I don't know how many more years we have on that. Jason, if you know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
was it like 2010 when our wastewater treatment plant was upgraded? Or was it?
I think it was.
Okay,
So there's been, the last expansion was around 2002. And then an improvements project, it was mainly capital improvements, and that was 2016, 17, that time frame. And so I think that bond is probably still
Yeah, that
in
one's,
effect.
yep.
But that was mainly a maintenance capital improvements, not an expansion. The 2016, 17 project.
20 or 30 year.
Probably a 20-year.
I thought
Yeah.
I was there.
and then my second part of my question is, if anybody looks at their utility bill, and I don't know if this is common for single family homes or across the board, but disproportionately, the largest part of our city utility bill when you're evaluating electricity versus water versus sewer is sewer takes the lion's share of what the costs are per month. And I don't know if I'm just applying what my household consumes in terms of electricity, water, and the water consumption being tied directly to sewer. And I guess my hesitancy is any rate increase, like the people, household bears the burden of that cost. And so that seems to be like the general landscape, like sewer costs us more than anything else on our utilities, assuming that you're being more energy efficient. Now, on the education and outreach end of things, so kind of tying into what you're talking about, these administrative controls, like encouraging best practices, I would look to communities that have water shortages in terms of how they're incentivizing hardscaping, native planting, not installing irrigation systems. When you have a luxury development like Bay Harbor and every other household is installing grass and lawn and irrigation systems and fertilizers and the inputs there, I would think that an education campaign could be something like best practices and how to landscape. And here in Michigan, because we live right on the bay, there's this perception that we don't have a problem with water. And I'm wondering if there are ways of cities and municipalities, those areas, I mean, not to compare us to desert communities, but there's definitely best practices, and like, you don't have a lawn, or you encourage and incentivize people to, like you were saying, an administrative control could be like, maybe not just incentivizing, but like saying we are on an every other week irrigation system. Also, people here in northern Michigan have been interested in gray water collection systems, and we're currently not allowed to do that because those are, it's never been like a policy that's been approved or people have had interest in that. So I'm just wondering what other opportunities we might have. We do a really good job of encouraging homeowners to reduce their utility costs or their electrical costs by installing LED bulbs and turning off the lights. With water and sewer, you really have no control over how much you use and the cost for that. So I guess I'm just wondering about that. And then also with the wastewater treatment plant, a future of us being able to dispose of our biosolids by doing land application might come to an end in Michigan. And Eagle is looking at, because of PFAS and biosolids and the land application rates, I would wonder if that would impact our ability to be able to efficiently run our wastewater treatment plant. And I don't know if that's something that's in consideration for the future, but the cost of disposal of biosolids would be greatly shifted to the burden of the taxpayer if we had to landfill those items instead of doing direct land application. And I guess lastly, because in this report, we did get some numbers. So I went to page 9 of my report, and in the water system capacity improvements, and then the column of wastewater system capacity improvements, the lion's share of the water system capacity improvements of the future would be the East District water main and storage tank at $19 million. And so when I asked Denny Kaiser about that today, he said that that would be, that East District water main and storage tank would be a proposed, that would be on Bear Creek Township. Is that correct? Or would that be a city and Bear Creek Township?
Bear Creek Township.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Those are my questions, Mayor. Thank you.
You want me to answer any of those?
Yeah. I'm just kind of.
A lot of stuff, Lindsay. So we haven't talked on the water wastewater side. We don't do any type outreach. That is something you could look into. And as far as getting deeper in the rates, that's a topic for another day. It's pretty in depth, right? You had so many things that trying to landfill, yes. So biosolid land application. Have you heard?
Yeah, so this question about biosolids land applications come up a lot, especially you think about areas in Metro Detroit that are impacted by industrial sources. They do have a higher concentrations of PFAS in the biosolids. You know, all the testing here, it's been well within the limits. So there have been certain communities that because of PFAS, they have had to switch to landfilling, which, you know, it costs more. It's about 2 times per pound to dispose of. And so currently land application is one of the factors that does keep the rates low in Petoskey. But, you know, should those limits change, that would likely come from the federal level. So I'm not sure how that, you know, what the forecast of that would be, but currently it's well within the limits for land application. And it's something that I think if that does change, you know, the city would need to be prepared for it. But this time, I don't think that.
Yeah, our water wastewater operators they're up on the PFAS because it's such a big thing, big topic right now, and a very costly issue to deal with. So they're looking at both our water and our wastewater. So yeah, we've been sampling and we're well within the limits, and we're not even close to the I guess you would call it a target or the trigger limit.
Okay.
Mayor, can I just have that last question answered about the East District
Please.
water main and storage tank and being like the lion's share of like the highest budget amount and maybe what that's directly tied to? And that's maybe the reason that people from Bear Creek Township are in the meeting tonight.
Yeah, I can.
Go ahead.
So I guess when we met with when we met with Bear Creek Township, that eastern area really represents, to the township where potential growth could occur. That is, there is a storage tank, the Lockwood tank, but that's at a lower elevation, so we wouldn't be able to serve that area. And typically, once you surpass the amount you have a certain amount of storage, once you surpass a certain amount, we recommend having storage in that area, not just for supply, but also fire flow. So that would be why that's would be in that area. And so the tank is a lion's share of that cost, as our transmission mains. We're using.
That would be picked up by Resort.
No, Bear Creek, they would.
Excuse me, I'm not Bear Creek. Those also be picked up by them though.
Correct. And all this is based on an assumed area. This is a very preliminary review of the cost, and that, I can't put a stamp on that, how much it would actually cost.
And this isn't the first time the east side, we call it, has been studied. I think back in 2008, the township looked at that with their consulting engineers. We looked at it. And right now, there really is no infrastructure beyond, say, Division Road. And so that encompasses that area, everything kind of east of Division. And so it's going to be a costly, if they decide to develop that and push water out into that area, it's going to be costly.
Any other questions?
I do know that Bear Creek Township is going through and has been going through master planning for a few months now, and that process is ongoing.
Thank you very much. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Thank you.
You have any other stuff you want to bring our way? We more than accept and invite you to bring other educational things to us as well.
Sounds good.
Is it appropriate for us to ask some questions based on this or not?
Let me think for a second. We have public comment coming up, but I guess, sure. You step up to this thing. Give your full name, full address.
I'm Barb Diefenbach.
Hang on.
Hi, Barbara Diefenbach. I live at 2670.
Wait, just wait. Just wait. Are you ready?
No, but go ahead.
No, get ready first.
No, fine.
All right, go.
Okay, Barbara Diefenbach, 2677 Cemetery Road. Several questions. I know you probably can't answer most of them, but you were talking about the Anderson wellhead and 2 straws in the ground. It would have to be built. What would be the impact on the aquifer for the surrounding areas? All our houses are on wells. Is that going to be studied before, if and when it's ever activated? And second part is, if it has a negative effect on my well, what happens then?
So if we were to proceed with developing those 2 wells, yes. Drawdown testing.
Do you want him to have a mic?
He needs mic.
Throw that in there. So
If you can also have a mic
yeah, just throw it in there.
right there, push, go.
Gonna take a second. Just.
Yeah, it's just gonna.
Did you hit the bar?
Hit the bar. It'll take a second to load, but
Oh, there you go. You're good.
um,
Green, right?
can you push the thing down or you can just push this down into the. Oh, maybe it wasn't.
It's still not like it.
One of ours.
Here, here,
Yeah, my mic.
there you go. That's better down there.
It's all right. Okay.
I'm sure we won't miss her opportunities because we'll share it. All right. Briefly,
If we were to develop those, we would go through a drawdown test and look at what the impacts to aquifers would be. And if there's impacts, we wouldn't want that for the community.
Well, I wouldn't want it either, but,
I think we're permitted.
It's looked at and stuff.
okay, but if it's negative, what happens to my well and what are my resources?
it's hypothetical, and there's no, you know, it's,
So part of the drawdown test is to actually determine what the capacity of that well is. So if they do a drawdown test and they try, it's like 2,000 gallons a minute and it does produce drawdown in the area, it would be limited to the area, the actual capacity, the actual flow that does not incur drawdown in the area. And
okay,
we don't know the details of that.
that's good, okay?
Okay, and the cost would be Bear Creek Township, you said?
Bear Creek Township, and then historically, they've passed that on to the developers.
Okay,
Okay.
anyone else wish to speak?
Hi, Tana Baldwin, 278 US 131. So I have a couple of questions about the pictures that you have there. The Bear Creek South area that you've identified has listed as 200,000 gallons per day. Can you tell me how many people that was meant to serve? Or like, or what are the parameters?
Those numbers were given to us by the township, so I'm not sure what they were looking at. They were looking at probably their master plan and looking.
Like, I forget what terms you used for your actual capacity versus.
So they gave us areas that they were projecting growth, and then they assigned an actual number to those
And
areas.
you say that
There's an
generally,
estimate.
generally a 50 gallon per day, is that the normal you estimate for people?
It varies depending on type of housing unit, if you're looking at
Right.
housing.
People wise, don't you have an estimate that you use for?
You'd have to talk to Bear Creek on that one, because we just get the numbers from them.
Right, yeah, I thought it was an industry standard is what I was asking about. Also, the area that's identified then shows the water coming across and cutting through. What, is there a purpose to that or?
When we build water to serve properties, we like to have them looped because it improves fire flow and water quality. So those are transmission mains that are shown in that drawing. They're just a concept of you need to get, if you're going to develop this area, you need to loop back at some point.
Okay,
Typically along road.
Yeah, typically along roads,
I'm sorry.
typically along existing roadway corridors that has right of way.
This cuts straight through the middle of the block. That's what I wondered why it was, if there was some purpose to that. If there was a height issue or there was something.
No, it was just based on what the township told us that the area of growth that they were looking at.
But they're looking at growth for that whole area you outlined for sewer.
Sewer and water.
Okay. So the water would serve things on the other side of it as well as,
Essentially.
okay, so that's why it goes to the middle. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Thank you. Moving on. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Great presentation. A lot of time spent on it. Thank you. Next is consent agenda. It's adoption of a proposed resolution that would confirm approval of the following. March 3rd, 2025, regular session and a closed session, which I'm passing out now. For the city council meeting minutes, acknowledge the receipt of certain transactions that have occurred administratively since March 3, 2025. The February 2025 revenue and expenditure report, as well as authorizing street administrator designation as required by MDOT. I turn it over to council for possible questions or a possible motion.
So moved.
Second the motion.
A motion from Ms. Demore, a second from Mr. Shields. Any other comments or questions, council? I go to Ms. Beck for roll.
DeVore. Aye. Shields.
Yes.
Walker. Aye. Murphy.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Next is public comment. If you wish to speak to council at this point, please step up to the mic or online, and you'll have a few minutes to do that. There being none, we go to the city manager. Manager's update. Manager Horn.
Thank you, Mayor. You have the handout, so maybe I'll just proceed. Want to highlight a few additional meetings this week. Downtown Management Board has their regular meeting tomorrow night here at 6 o'clock. That's also a meeting of the Downtown Development Authority, which is the same body, same board, if you will. They meet biannually. So this is a meeting for that body as well during the same evening. Planning Commission also meets this week, Wednesday, 6 o'clock. They will be considering a special condition use for a child care center at 403 Madison Street. That is, I forgot the name of that church there, but it was formerly a church.
First Christian Church.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So that's on for consideration. They'll also be discussing below grade residential uses in the B2 Central Business District, as we do have a development in that district that is requesting some consideration. So we wanted to have that discussion with Planning Commission to see if there is a desire to further discuss that going forward. So we will reviewing their annual report, which will also be coming back to City Council at our next meeting. Also this week, we did publish our 2025 rubbish collection program. That is on our website now as well, but just for an update, and we'll certainly remind people as we get closer, but our collection days are May 13th and May 20th and August 19th and August 26th. This would be for collection areas west of Howard Street. This would be a Tuesday. East of Howard Street would be on Wednesday. This would be May 14 and May 21 for our first round, and then back again in August 20 and 27. That's a slight modification to what we've done in years past. We really wanted to try to get ahead of both Memorial Day holiday and Labor Day holidays. So that's the slight change in our schedule from the last few years. Small yard waste will start on Thursdays, starting April 3rd through the end of May. So folks can, as they clean out their landscaping and start to rake up their yard from our winter season, we will be accepting that on the curb on those dates on Thursdays for that couple month period. And then also brush chipping will begin starting in April on Mondays, the first and third Mondays of each month, April through November. So we would encourage people to look at our website and get further information about those programs. Just some updates. Jason held a pre-construction meeting for our spring projects last week. Just to give you an update, Howard Street, as you know, is our big reconstruction, street reconstruction project this year from State to Sheridan. So this will kind of be done in two tiers, if you will, or two schedules. So we're going to start on April 2nd through late May. Will be from State Street to Grove. This will be a slight disruption to the schools there. The post office, Jason has been meeting with both and will continue to meet with both. We've sent out letters to everyone in this route of Howard Street, so everyone knows the schedule. So we're going to complete that section completely, underground work, new pavement from, again, State to Grove from April 2nd to late May. And then we'll pick up the rest of the project from Grove all the way to Sheridan. That'll start right at late May through the end of August. The hope is, again, that we can have this wrapped up before school in the fall begins. So that's a pretty aggressive schedule. And when I go over this schedule, we always put a disclaimer that this is weather is sometimes out of our control. And so if we get periods of significant rain events or storm events, this is subject to weather situations, and who knows, in April, we could still, I hate to even say it, but we could still get a snow event. So yeah, we have. The next project, the Seville lot improvements, that's scheduled to start the week of April 7th, and that'll go through Memorial up to Memorial Day. Is the schedule for that contract. Pennsylvania Park, the Park Avenue project will begin the week of May 31st. And that again that project is planned to be finished by the first part of June, middle of June. Sorry, I should have known that.
Oh, hit it again. You turned it off.
Hit it one more time. There you go.
You're good.
March 31st, not May 31st.
Did I say May? I'm sorry. Park Avenue, March 31st, start through.
Anticipated to be completed with any closures before Memorial Day, but we'll have landscaping and irrigation and things like that may run beyond Memorial Day.
Okay, thank you. Then the last one is the Bayfront East. It's called the Bayfront East Wheelway section from the turnaround bathrooms to kind of Boyne Country Sports. Removing the existing asphalt that's in pretty rough shape, putting concrete in. That is also scheduled to start the week of March 31, and hoping to have that wrapped up as well before Memorial Day. So we have a lot of significant work to get accomplished before our visitors start to arrive for the summer season. So give a lot of kudos to Jason and his team for a lot of this stuff happens, in the winter months from a preparation standpoint. And Jason and his team, our consultants, our contractors know what the expectation is. It's very clearly delineated in their contracts for obvious reasons. So everyone will be, full bore coming back from spring break holidays or leaves, if you will, and we will get after it. And hopefully we'll have everything cleaned up and polished up for our visitors when they arrive later this summer. Another thing I want to highlight and just pleased to announce and give congratulations to a couple long-standing employees that are retiring at the end of this month. Pat Costello and Ricky Howard, both in the Public Works Department. Pat has 22 years with the city. Ricky has 20 years with the city, so combined a 42-year experience kind of walking out the building. So Jason and his team have been interviewing folks to step into, when one door closes, another door opens. And so that cycle will hopefully continue, and hopefully we'll find another 20+ year employee out of this latest interview pool that we've just completed. So again, kudos to Pat and Ricky. That's a lot of time behind the steering wheel, plowing streets and maintaining streets and making our community as beautiful as it is. So we certainly thank them and appreciate their dedicated service. We will be having a luncheon for them later this week, so we're excited to celebrate them. Any questions for me?
Those two wave every time they go by. I love to see Pat. He waves, Ricky waves. Very dedicated. I'm sure during the long hours in the wintertime, they're still out there doing it. And I know also you guys, Jason, Shane, you guys have worked out a great plan, I'm sure, for rerouting traffic on Howard. And
Yeah, we've been studying the traffic. I'm not gonna say it's gonna be easy, but yeah, we're gonna do our best to accommodate people and, you know, it's the season, right? Construction season.
I just give you your cell number though, right?
Yeah. Most of the residents generally have our cell numbers and then we're gonna do
That too.
Did you inherit Mike Robbins' cell phone number, or was there like a passing off of the cell phone, or?
I do not have Mike's cell, but we could direct him to Mike's cell.
Miss Walker.
Thank you, Shane, for the report. Could you extrapolate or just share a little bit more about the planning commission's Wednesday meeting? You had mentioned something about discussion on a below grade residential uses in the B2 Central Business District. Is there a proposal on the table, or is this in regards to a specific development?
It's regarding a specific development, and I'll just kind of say it. It's out there, or will be out there. We do have a project at the former Leo's Lounge. I think that it was at what it was called, Leo's Neighborhood Grill. I've heard it's
Leo's Lounge.
seen
Leo's Lounge.
a couple different things, but the owner desires to put back a bar restaurant on the main level, have residential above, and wants to have the opportunity for a garden level below. That would be workforce housing. We've mentioned the challenges to that, how it's currently constructed from an ordinance and zoning standpoint. I really don't know what the appetite of planning commission or city council would be to consider something like this, but certainly it starts with conversations, and we'll see where things go from here. But his proposal currently is to have a below ground workforce housing opportunity and another establishment that would be on the basement level, if you will. So we'll have that conversation. I think I had just arrived when this conversation happened. And I don't know if it was project driven or if it was just a consideration of something else, but at that time, there was some concerns raised, and maybe those concerns are still there, but I don't know in this situation if that is not permissible, if there's an opportunity to kind of reimagine that project without that, but he at least requested the opportunity to have the discussion. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Anything else? Mr. Shields.
Thanks, Manager Horn. With the planning commission there, also, I saw on the agenda, they were discussing duplexes, triplexes and quadplexes. Is that still on the agenda, or was that removed because of this?
I don't think that's on their agenda. Oh, I'm sorry. I must have missed that. Sorry, I missed that. There is discussion topics of duplexes, triplexes and quadplexes as well.
Yeah,
Did that change?
I don't think they got to it the meeting
Right,
prior,
that's
is what
correct.
I recall.
That's what I read in the notes.
But if it's on there, then.
Yes. I apologize. I didn't have that on my report.
No worries. Just wanted to highlight that as well.
Yep, thank you.
And then a question, with the letter that was sent out to the residents on Howard Street, State Grove, Sheridan area. Can council get a copy of that letter? And is that something we could share with, I share with some other Ward 2 residents that might be impacted? I could just give more information out.
Sure. I'm happy to send that out to everybody.
Excellent. Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you for your city manager's update. It's always clear, concise, and very informative. Next is appointment, consideration of appointment to the zoning board of appeals. Mr. Brown. Bill Brown. Did I skip?
I think so.
Nope, that was in the consent.
That was already
agenda.
on the consent agenda.
My ear.
For once, I wasn't wrong. I got one mark. Appointment from Mr. Brown to the ZBA.
I'm happy to make a motion to reappoint William Brown to the ZBA.
I second the motion.
I have a motion from Ms. More, second from Mr. Shields. Any other discussion? I go to roll.
Demore. Aye. Shields.
Yes.
Walker. Aye. Murphy.
Yes. Next, there are three things left on the agenda. One of them is consideration for a closed session. There will be new business following that closed session. And then there will be city council comments before adjournment. But first, for the adoption of a proposed resolution, I would authorize to adjourn to closed session to strategize and negotiate connected with the negotiations of the collective bargaining agreement pursuant MCL 15.268.
So moved.
I have a motion from Mr. Shields. A second.
A second from?
Second from Ms. Walker. And go to Beck for roll.
Shields.
Yes.
Walker. Aye. Demore. Aye. Murphy.
Yes. We'll be back to go to the new business following this visitation to the back room.
You guys.
$500 bills in my.
You want me to come in here?
Yeah.
Yes, I should probably ask. I assume.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. Yeah, we're back in session at 7:54.
7:50.
Oh, 7:50. Oh, I see our clocks are different. Okay. New business, adoption of a proposed resolution that would authorize the city manager to execute the Teamsters state, county, and municipal workers local 214, the 2025 to 2028 collective bargaining agreement covered in the Public Works Employees Agreement. Mr. Shields.
I'll make a motion to authorize the city manager to execute the collective bargain agreement.
I'll second the motion, Mayor.
I have a motion from Mr. Shields, a second from Ms. Walker. Any other discussion? I go to Ms. Beck for roll.
Shields.
Yes.
Walker. Aye. Demore. Aye. Murphy.
Yes, motion passes 4-0. Now, council, this is your opportunity to speak to the world. Ms. Walker.
Thank you, Mayor. No comments for today. Thank you.
Mr. Shields.
Thank you, Mayor. Strongtowns.org just came out with a housing ready toolkit. It's titled Is Your Town Housing Ready? I know that Housing North has something similar that they've been working with the city and local municipalities around our area for a while. But I encourage any resident interested in the zoning discussions and housing concerns to check out the Housing Ready Toolkit at strongtowns.org.
I did see that as well, and I'm happy to send that out to council if you so desire.
Ms. Demore.
In less than 12 hours, this Not Morning person, along with Mr. Shields, will be chaperoning 8 Petoskey Youth Advisory Council members down to Capitol Conference. Thank you, Mr. Shields, for being my partner in this endeavor. Happy birthday to our clerk tomorrow. That's it. Thank you.
I had the opportunity to ask Friendship Center, and I spent from 8 o'clock till 12:30 today delivering food with them. It's quite an experience if they ask you to do it. We do have a lot of people that I think are very beneficially benefited with this process. Friendship Center. I hope that our community continues that. Arts Commission was that we met last week. We just got it down to 2 artists. The commission asked that our contract laborer, Sheila Runes, go back and do some adjusting with it, and we're hoping that next month we'll have a project that I will present to you where we're headed for Sunset Park. I guess there's no further.
Tomorrow, you want to talk about what we're going to do tomorrow morning?
Oh, the Dog and Pony Show. Shane and I are doing a presentation at 8:45 till 9:45 to the Leadership Little Travelers. We did that last year. It was very well received, and I think it was very beneficial for us as well. Also, I know that Miss Walker is also presenting on renewable energy or recycling, or what is it?
No, actually, it's about elected office.
Oh, okay.
So the focus of Leadership Little Travelers theme for this month is government.
Okay.
And so there's a kind of a broad kind of depth in looking at local government, county government, the court system, as well as tribal leadership of a federal and native sovereign nation.
Okay.
Yeah.
I might have to hang around to hear that.
Sounds like we're all gonna be busy tomorrow.
Well, with there being, happy St. Patrick's Day. There's two kinds of, I won't say that. I call this meeting adjourned. Go and drink beer, green.